Thank you so much. This is an honor to be here. Good morning from Costa Rica. My name is Travis Bays. I'm the co-founder of the award-winning Bodhi Surf and Yoga Camp. I am also a co-founder of a community foundation here. And more importantly, I am a father of two lovely daughters and a husband to a very lovely wife. What we're going to do this morning is the following. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Bodhi Surf and Yoga is educating and empowering not only our customers, but our stakeholders about the power of business for good. But before I even start that, I need to give you guys a little bit of information about what a B Corporation is in the first place. And I'm going to try and do it in a simple way. B Corporation business is really a business that balances purpose and profit. And we're legally required to consider the impact of our decisions on workers, customers, suppliers, community, and the environment. And if you want to break it down to even be something more simple, it's really, and this is taken from the B Corp website, it's a movement of people using business as a force for good. We'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. Some of the businesses that you might recognize as B Corp certified are Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream company, right? Everyone loves Ben & Jerry's. Patagonia, the outdoor apparel, and now a company that's really producing food. Very interesting. Allbirds, a shoe wear company. You might have heard of them. Clean Canteen. Got mine right here. I hope you guys have yours too.
No.
And Seventh Generation, for example, cleaning supplies. These are just some of the bigger corporations. Recently, the B Corp movement has seen companies like Danone, North America become certified, and some larger ones also coming out of Brazil, like Natura. So the movement is indeed growing. But so going back to the focus, which is me and Bodhi Surf and Yoga, how do we educate and empower? Well, we really believe that voting doesn't just happen coming up in November for us in the United States, but really voting happens every single day. And one of the best movements that I think the B Corp organization has launched is the idea that you vote every single day with the purchases that you make, right? And so I wanted to show just a quick video that they put together that will help you understand that really your voice and power is actually amplified, not only when we go to vote at the ballot boxes, but actually in what we purchase, right? Why we're purchasing it, who we're purchasing it from, who we're doing business with. All of these things really amplify our voice and power. So I'm going to share my screen real quick here. And then after I share this video, then I'll go into detail on what Bodhi Surf and Yoga is doing. So give me a second here. Let's see if this is going to work. Are you still with me? Are you seeing my screen? Okay. So the B Corp movement started this campaign, Vote Every Day, Vote B Corp. And it's very interesting how they actually established a quiz. So I'm hoping that today, after this conversation, or maybe tomorrow, that each and every one of you that are listening today, take this 1-minute quiz and start to think about your purchases and how you can become a B Corp customer and vote with your dollar. Here's the video real quick.
Hey, democracy. We need to talk. Yes, we do vote, but we have more to say. It's not just about government. Business needs to step it up too, to treat people, land, and communities fairly. So simply, we need more votes. And with certified B corporations, we've got the power to vote every single day. By buying from, working for, and doing business with B Corps, we vote for what we believe in. Because B Corps have the highest standards for how they treat people, natural resources, and their communities, driven by a deep belief that it's just the way things should be. That's right, democracy. We're coming together to make every day election day. Vote every day. Vote B Corp.
So in 2016, when we first became certified as a B Corporation, I thought, wow, what a great achievement. But what ended up happening over the years is I started realizing that my guests, my customers, were showing up to this beautiful coastal village with really terrible products. What type of products? Well, when you come to the beach, what do you think you're going to need?
Sunscreen.
Yes, right? What else?
Bug repellent.
Exactly, right? And so a lot of our guests were coming with bug repellent and sunscreen that was doing a lot of harm, not only to themselves, but also to the environment, and then leaving those products here in Costa Rica. Another thing that we noticed were guests coming down and not knowing that Costa Rica has potable water. And so they would come down and not bring a reusable water bottle and go to the store and buy single-use plastic water bottles. And so I started to think, all right, what is my responsibility? Is my responsibility only getting my business to become B Corp certified? Or do I need to do more? And so as a team, we started discussing, what are we doing to empower or to educate and then empower our guests to use business as a force for good? And what we looked at was, what are we doing pre-trip before people even get here? What are we doing on site? And what are we doing post-visit, right? And so to help our guests be more responsible consumers and to help our community, we developed a sustainable pre-trip purchase guide, not with the incentive to motivate people to buy more, I'll say, for lack of a better term, crap or things that they don't need. But there are some essential items that you might need to pick up. And if you're going to buy something, what we wanted to do at the very least is put a product out in front of them that was made more responsibly, that wasn't going to harm them or the environment, and that was being produced by a company that was certified by B corporations. One interesting thing that we ended up achieving is during the on-site process, we teamed with a few companies like Clean Canteen, Badger Balm, All Good. Those are all 3 B Corp certified companies, and established what we call a loaner program. So we have their products in our common area where people eat and enjoy the daily breakfast or the group dinner meals. And the products are there. And it's not like a big sign for sale, or we're not trying to push them. They're there and people are like, oh, what is this? And through the questions that they're asking themselves and then us, we are able to then say, well, we have this Clean Canteen bottle. Since you didn't bring one down, you can use one during the week. A lot of people are like, well, can we buy it? No, our business is not selling these things. Our business is educating, right? So go back home and buy one when you get back. Same thing with the sunscreen and the bug spray. It's a really fascinating project. One thing we haven't done is done any monitoring and evaluation to really see how many guests at the end of the day are purchasing these products. But what we have done is post-visit, really established a flow to encourage people to make a commitment. So the last day that they're at Bodhi Surf and Yoga, what we do is we have a gratitude ceremony. And at that gratitude ceremony, we ask our guests to take a pledge. And they literally write the pledge. Some of them make pledges that say, I'm just going to smile more, which is a great pledge, right? We should all do that. Smile while we paddle, right, Bill? Some take the pledge quite seriously and say, I want to reduce single-use plastics, or some have even gone as far as saying they want to quit the job. My point is that what we also offer our guests post-visit is a digital pledge, and that pledge is called the Ocean Guardian Pledge. And when they sign it, what they're signing up for are 3 action-oriented emails per month for a year-long process. And within those action emails, we do point towards companies that are B Corp certified as well. Just light taps on the shoulder. We're not barking at anyone. We're not ordering anyone. We're just suggesting and educating people that we feel that this is the best way that you can consume. And I want to just end with a quote that kind of struck me recently, and it was actually something that a friend of mine on this panel sent. It's at the end of a video done by Nick Pumphrey. And at the end of the video, he says, be here, be present, and reconnect. Reconnect with what you love, reconnect with nature, reconnect with community, and create your very own mad spiral of goodness. And so that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, is create this mad spiral of goodness. Thank you so much for listening.
Travis,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Thanks for getting us started here in the dialogue. I will tell you that there's a, you know, that what I was thinking of in the middle of this is just one central, I think is the most powerful kind of concept in ethics, that that you act in a way that if you willed it to the rest of the world would be a better place. And it's so clear, this connection you're trying to make between prosperity, if you will, and public purpose. It's, again, as I said in the introduction, it speaks exactly to why the very reason why we have this forum. So thank you for giving that principle some animation in the work that you're doing. And I would also add that that video, I mean, how perfect is that? I mean, we hope too in ethics is that it goes well beyond an armchair kind of discussion to action, and that idea of seeing your dollar as a vote. I think is I like that it's so action oriented. So thank you for that, and let's open it up to the panel.
Travis, I have a question for you, and maybe it's just more of an elaboration for our audience. You mentioned when you started speaking about stakeholders, and you talked quite a bit about your customers. But can you tell us more about what do you mean when you say stakeholders, and who are those stakeholders?
That's a great question. For us, a stakeholder is anyone that is linked to our business in any way, shape, or form. So we're looking at, for example, our suppliers of cleaning products. We purchase from Florex, which is a Costa Rican B Corp company. We look at our community as an extension of our business. And so we're involved in local community organizations like the Local Community Development Association, like the Community Foundation that we started, and several nonprofits. So we look at also the legal implications, and we just received an email recently that Costa Rica has passed legislation to now force B companies to incorporate the shareholder clause into our legal constitution, which wasn't an obligation previously. This is something very new and something very radical for Costa Rica. So it's really, again, looking at, you know, when we talk about stakeholders, we talk about governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. So customers just play a small part in the whole picture.
How much? Hey, Travis, thank you for sharing your story. I'm curious about this network you've created of B Corp, various B Corps and products, and integrating them. How much of that was driven, and I'm sure most of it, by you, or how much like collaboration is there amongst that community? Like how many opportunities there are for you to create those connections, and how easy is it for you to find other organizations, and maybe you could speak also to, like, do you reach out to them specifically with, like, leading with, hey, we're a fellow B Corp, like is there somewhat of a fraternity to it? Like I'd love to hear a little bit along those lines.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is, like I said earlier, we got this certification, and I was like, oh, this is a great achievement, but what, you know, what's next, you know? And I'm always thinking of different ways that we can constantly improve. And so that's when I started looking at, you know, where are we buying our products from? How many of those products can be purchased from B Corp companies? What other alliances could we establish? And so to your point, I started reaching out and saying, hey, I'm a fellow B Corp company, would you be interested? That said, there are opportunities. There's something called the Beehive within the B Corp community, whereby you can reach out and connect. But I will say that I think that this is something that B Corp can work on a little bit more in helping to connect the dots. For example, we're looking right now, we've never had an online merchandise store, and people have said all the time, we'll buy a shirt you know, and again, we don't want to create more things, but if someone's going to make a purchase, great, let's have them purchase a bottle that's co-branded Clean Canteen and Bodhi. But how do we do it in a responsible way? So we're looking for a company, for example, that's B Corp certified that could help us. And so it would be nice, and we're getting at it, but I think it would be cool to figure out a way whereby the B Corp platform, whether it's online, it would have to be online, where you can type in and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and somebody responds, boom, you know, there's a directory, but I think it's a little bit tedious. So it's been a lot of, you know, just reaching out and connecting. It would be cool to have a platform though. And maybe maybe one exists and I'm just not aware of it, but to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't exist right now.
No, I don't think anything exists, but it's a great idea if you ever want to start another company, Travis.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Travis, I have a question, and this will be to you and to the whole panel. There's no question. I mean, when you're hearing the principles behind this, there's no question about the need for this as we move forward as an integrated global society, as these pressing needs right now. And there are so many of them, but this big umbrella of climate change, environment, and so on, this is huge. Where the tension seems to be between prosperity and public purpose, there's a tension there. And I think there's I'll call it old school for maybe lack of a better conceptualization of that, of this idea that business, it's the Milton Friedman, concept, right? That business is all about profit, and all of those related to profit, a single bottom line versus sometimes what we hear is a triple bottom line. And I'm wondering if you could just, or anybody in the panel, if we could speak to this, because again, it's a slam dunk that we ought to, and I ought to be doing this, and ought is the driving force of ethics. But what is that? What is the reality of that? What's happening on the books? What is the CFO saying? And how are we engaging in that kind of, how are we reconciling, I guess, those pressures? And I would open that up to everybody, but Travis, you might want to start us off.
Yeah, this is a big discussion, right? In the sense that where does our drive initiate from in the first place?
Right.
And I think a lot of it, without getting too philosophical, stems from the ego. And also this idea of we're just very short-sighted, I think, as a species. And so, if you look at Yvon Chouinard's 100 years in the future letter that he wrote to his company, that's the type of vision we need. We need to be looking out beyond our life, right? And unfortunately, that's really difficult for us to do. And so I think that's one of the biggest barriers. It sounds kind of foofy, but it's a deeper level of awareness, a deeper level of consciousness that we need to achieve. And how do we do that is up for question too. But everyone knows that it benefits us more to include the cost of the environment over the long term, include the cost of the community, these things that typically in accounting don't get included. It's just short-sightedness, I think.
Yeah, building off of, and thank you for that answer, and thank you for the question, Bob. The Friedman model or the growth model or capitalism generally, it almost seems like B Corps are trying to reframe what it means to be a good capitalist. And I'm wondering, and maybe Bill, you can chime in here as well. The imperative of growth and individual profit making and corporate profit making, and the idea that we're all somehow improving materially, and that's the only way we can save the environment is to be abundant enough that we can set aside money. This is the this is the standard thinking, or has been the standard thinking in the US. How does Costa Rica balance growth and environmental awareness and education to where um, people can just slow down a little bit and not be constantly pressured or feeling this is part of your education, I assume, or the educational program of realizing there could be a balance. And how hard is that to achieve? um, is there institutional and governmental support in Costa Rica for that kind of balance?
Yeah. Was that addressed to you, Bill? Or are you gonna take a swap at that?
I'll let you. You have much more experience here than I do, so
Hey, Bill.
I can add, but I'll let you take it first. I've learned everything I know. Yeah, and kind of looking about what you all do here, so I'll let you take that.
Yeah, it's actually a question that my wife and I discuss quite frequently. And where I'm going with this is that if you look at studies of quality of life in Costa Rica, right, the studies say that, you know, everything is all good in terms of studies of happiness, right? But if you ask my wife, who's Costa Rican, she says those studies might not be all that true. Why? Because culturally speaking, the Costa Rican will always say that everything is pura vida, which means everything is all good. Now, psychologically, that might be a great plus, right? To always think everything's all good when everything's not. But you know, it's the interesting thing too is like economics, when you break it down, in my opinion, is just the study of human choices. And then the study of human choices is what I would go to is the study of anthropology, the study of values and culture, right? And so I would say that over the 15 years of living here, I have learned that breathing and spending time more with friends and family is a value that Costa Ricans hold very highly. And so I think that contributes to this idea of it's better to have well-being than to have more income. Now, that's not always the case. You go to San Jose and it's you know, Bill, you can speak to this. There's pockets there where it looks like, you know, Southern California. In terms of institutions that are supporting well-being, yes, you know, there are, you know, public health system, the social security system is quite strong. That's being reflected right now during the pandemic. The public education system is great in terms of access to education. The quality of education, that can be debated. But I think in general, the country has a very, I don't want to generalize. This is a tough question. I think that overall there is a spirit of collaboration, a spirit of community, and I think that is a highly respected value here, and I think that shows through the economics of when you're looking at like the United States is more being individualistic.
Right. And going back to Bob's reference to Friedman, the idea that every individual and every firm just goes for the gusto to get as much as they can. You know, we're in the, Rosanna and I are in the business education business. And, you know, there's some headwinds there, you know, in the sense that institutions and government over the last 40 years have been degraded in terms of popular discourse and culture and suspicion of government and institutions. So maybe we can pick that thread up later, but it's good to hear that there are, I guess, reasonably good support for the idea of balance between growth at all costs and personal balance and environmental balance.
I have a question. Travis, thank you for sharing your story. And one thing that you mentioned that I was curious about, you were saying that you have a difficulty tracking the numbers of how, if people are buying these products when they're going home and everything like that. And I think that that's something for any business, which is, or any organization really, which is important, is tracking and quantifying how it's doing. If you want to spread your message and spread this idea and the concept and seeing how it's working, like how can you think about that? How can you think about actually quantifying the effects? And how do you measure that personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had a few years ago 2 researchers come down. One, AJ Schneller from Skidmore College, and then Dr. Carter Hunt from Penn State, and both did studies on behavior change in our guest as a result of the experience, which is something I'm really after. Like, I want to make sure that we don't make the claim that we're going to transform you. That's not our idea. We just want to provide a memorable experience and provide you with some tools to help you on the journey, right, that we're all on. So we had those 2 studies, and those actually got published in academic journals that hinted at, yes, our experience is helping promote and create pro-environmental behavior change. A few years ago too, we went a little crazy and started to develop an app. So this is for post-visit, right? Whereby if you guys all came to Bodie, while you're at Bodie, the app would be working so that if you went and bought from one of the companies that's not using single-use plastics, you'd get some points. And then when you went home, if you took action, you'd get some points, and those points would be redeemable at certain levels for certain things. We didn't have the money to really invest in that app and make it as productive as I wanted it to be, but that was a way that we were going to try and measure change. And so that doesn't exist anymore. The only other way that we're doing that right now, and this is something we want to work on in 2021, 2022, is we just have a visual map of all the people that have taken their pledges. We used Esri Story Maps. It's a really cool tool to be able to tell stories. And so we have all of our guests that have taken the pledge, that we have a picture of them holding their pledge, and we just geographically pinpoint where they are. But it's a really important question that we need to dive deeper into. And I would encourage anybody that's listening, if you guys are interested in helping us develop monitoring and evaluation, we're more than happy to receive support for that, for sure. It's really important.
Yeah, Raleigh, that is a really great question. And I've worked a lot with a lot of benefit corporations, actually, a lot of certified and aspiring. And that is always a question that does come up. How do we measure this kind of impact that we are having and our customers? And so to the audience and to the panelists, you know, what Travis was talking about earlier is voting with your dollar. And I don't even know it until I started realizing that there is the Be Certified label that will be on products. And Travis, I don't know if you have the logo handy somewhere so you could show. And the number of products now that I'm beginning to see that have that label on it, you know, says, oh, this is the product I want to buy. And it does make me, I'll buy it, you know, over another product. So that is one way that B Lab and the certified B Corps are trying to get the message out there, is through this label. So look for it.
I know, as someone who works in marketing, there's that the studies are just leaning more and more in the direction of the consumer being incredibly concerned with supporting brands that have character, that are taking stands that align with their own personal beliefs. And it's especially true of the millennial generation and some of these larger generations who are quickly becoming the largest spenders. Like they do make decisions based on things like business for good. I have a question as far as like B Corp and maybe specifically Travis, your organization. So just like kind of responding to some of the pertinent issues of the day, like the environmental or climate action space for you is really an easy connection or a close connection because of the Costa Rican history. I'm wondering, like, as far as like the social equity and anti-racism, so the Black Lives Matter movement, like I'm seeing that kind of front and center on the B Corp's website right now, that they're standing behind some of those things. How has your business, you know, reacted to the times, or have you? And was that influenced at all by being a B Corp member? Like, had they pressured you, or not pressured you, I should say, but did give you resources or kind of make you, you know, think about some of the gaps that we're experiencing?
Yeah, the whole issue kind of came to light just like what happened, you know, in the United States. And so a lot of businesses started taking a deeper reflection a moment to reflect, right? And we did that as well. And we're actually still in a period of listening and investigating and seeing what changes we need to make. We took a stance in that we supported all of the movements that were happening, but we weren't going to come out with a quick response and say, this is what we're doing, because we just don't know enough about what we should be doing. And so we've been taking it's been about 6-7 months now, where we've been doing research and trying to figure out what would be the best and most meaningful way we could have impact. I thought there were a lot of businesses that just threw up a letter, and I was like, I don't want to just throw up a letter and do nothing. So we're actually in a process right now where we're going through our policy, our procedures. We're looking at, especially in the southern area of Costa Rica, there's a highly indigenous population, and there's been a lot of very sad things that have happened to them recently. And I think that one of the things that we're going to end up doing that we've discussed is, how do we use our business, again, because we're not a nonprofit, we are a for-profit business, to make change in that area. And what we're thinking about doing is encouraging the Community Foundation, SOMOS, which I've helped start, to really develop a program that helps the community address these issues. And we think that that's going to be our best bet, because we still have to be our surf and yoga camp, right? And I think that a lot of times businesses try and be everything to solve every single problem, and that doesn't work either. So I guess what I'm saying is that our idea is to obviously clean our house up a little bit, but then use our business and the donations that we make to the Community Foundation hopefully will go towards programs in diversity and equity and inclusion. We actually are, the other co-founder, Adrienne, will be on a talk tomorrow with Travel Unity, if anyone wants to join that. And she'll be speaking about the intersection between sustainability and diversity.
I'm curious how much of your organization was a B Corp before you tried to get certified, and how many things you actually had to change and adjust based on kind of the certification process.
Yeah, we were set up and always with a higher purpose. So Bodhi is a Sanskrit word coming from India that, when loosely translated into English, means awakening consciousness. And so our higher purpose was always to use surfing, yoga, nature immersion, and community engagement. Those are our 4 tools, more or less, to create an experience, to educate, right? Well, to inspire, educate, and empower our guests and our stakeholders to do things differently. So it was a natural fit. We didn't have to change much. What it helped us do is really clean up, again, using that same clean up our house, go through each area, create policy, create procedures, and really start to do some of the monitoring and evaluation in terms of our impact. You know, how many dollars are we really spending locally? How many dollars are we spending with women-owned businesses? How many dollars are we spending in conservation projects? How many dollars are we injecting into our community organizations? All that stuff. So it helped us, I would say, structure and formalize things a little bit more, but we were already on the path. And it would be interesting to talk to somebody that wasn't on that path and made the switch and had to really readjust, because that wasn't the issue for us at all.
Right. Yeah. Is there a B Corp accountability program? I mean, do you report to an organization that is looking at these standards and your data as it relates?
Yes. So B Lab is the nonprofit that does the certification process. And so we first certified in 2016. And if I recall correctly, the process took almost 3 to 4 months. They look at financials, they look at legal. You have to provide really detailed, I mean, I had to go back through with my accountant, and like I was saying a few seconds ago, show the money that we were spending with, for example, woman-owned businesses, or within a kilometer range of where we are. So they got pretty detailed. And then when I certified in 2000, or when we certified in 2016, recertification process was every 2 years. But during that 2-year span, it changed. And so now it's every 3 years. So we actually just recertified in late 2019, early 2020. And I'm going to share my screen quickly here so that you can see. Let's see here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the B impact report, which shows our overall score, the impact area scores, governance, right? Workers, community, and each section has, oh man, I don't even know how many questions. It's
Wow.
it's a process. That said, I will, there is some flexibility in the sense that we haven't been audited, for example, on site or anything like that. This has all been digital, right? Sending all the information. It's really nice though that the auditors actually start to ask you questions. It's not like you just put up the information and they're like, check, check, check. They'll ask you deeper questions. You might have to go and dig deeper and get more documents and put them up there. So it's quite rigorous. And actually one of the reasons why we chose to go B Corp certified was because of it, how rigorous it is. And we wanted to hold ourselves to very high standards. As a tourism business, it's not normal. The norm for tourism businesses is to go get certified by GSTC or by the Costa Rica Tourism Institute. And one huge thing that we've been working on in the past since 2018 is getting all the B Corp companies that are working in the travel industry together. And we've been having monthly calls, and now this is branching out to actually to be something more formal called the B Tourism Group. And we're inviting businesses from Central and South America. There are already businesses in that group from Europe, Asia, Australia, North America. And so we're creating a movement within the movement, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that 121 points is actually very impressive. So to be certified, you need to have 80 points, and not many companies achieve over 100. So for you guys to have 121 is very, very impressive. And so just a little bit more information about certification. The one thing that is very nice is that you only have to get 80, and some companies are going to be focused more in, maybe not in the environment, which is easier for Bodhi to do, but they may be more focused on employees. And that's where you can get more points there. And so it is actually very flexible. There are companies, there are alcohol companies, beer companies, there's insurance companies that have gotten certified. So it's a whole range. Any company can get certified. Just where you get your points is going to be in different places. But you guys have done 121 is very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, our big where we score most is actually in community, and it's because of the community programs that we have, and our business model is designed to give. One thing that came to my mind about the monitoring and evaluation of our guests is we started in late 2019, early 2020 for that's our tourism season, basically November 2019 to March when the pandemic hit. We had started an alliance with, we are 1% for the Planet members, but what we started to do as a way to measure our impact with our guests was we were actually purchasing their individual membership for them, getting them started. So the idea is that if 200 guests pass through Bodhi and we start their individual 1% for the Planet membership, that we could then say at the end, 50 of them completed their 1% commitment. And that was a very, very tangible way that we were going to be able to measure, at least that we're putting these people on this path. And if they complete it, maybe it's not entirely because of us, but there is some type of correlation there, right? That we help them get going. We had to stop the program, and I'm looking at the numbers for this year to see if we can, if it's within our budget again, because we're actually taking that out of the package price and saying, here's your start, run with it, please go.
Yeah. That speaks a little bit to Raleigh's earlier question. And and Slade actually followed up with that with just the recognition that I think, you know, all of us have seen now, is that there does seem to be, and perhaps driven by the millennial generation, more and more or higher consciousness of spending. I'm wondering, and Rosanna and Dawn, Raleigh as well, you might have some data on this, but is there data supporting that is actually happening, and that there is a higher consciousness and it can be measured as in terms of spending towards this B Corp, or at least the more conscious capitalist kind of movement? Is there evidence of that?
I think your lack of a reply says no.
Okay.
I do think, you know, you're absolutely right, Bob. What I think there's anecdotal evidence that, you know, the students that we're working with, they're saying things, they're carrying, they're talking about these. Dawn, you want to add more?
Yeah, some years ago we had David Vogel come and speak, and he was the author of The Market for Virtue. And he's done a lot of extensive studies, and through Jim O'Toole, who is a friend of his out there in the Bay Area, kind of kept up with that, but not empirically, not in terms of data. I think a lot of people pin their hopes on the new generation, but Greta Thunberg says, how dare you? Our students, it's hard to say. You know, Rosanna and I teach students who are, for lack of a better term, millennials or early 30s folks, and some undergraduates as well. But the consciousness is there, but most studies show that what people say they do and what they actually do, there is a divergence.
Okay. Travis, I don't know, do you want to comment on that, or?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the tendency. There are two researchers that I've mingled with. One's coming out of Penn State, Janet Swim. She's a psychologist, and she's looking at how experiences in nature change behavior and attitudes. And then Nicole Ardone out of Stanford is another person who's looking at, for example, if you go on a whale watching tour, you know, are you likely to change your behaviors and attitudes and purchase products that, you know, are more friendly towards that species, for example, or that these are, you know, and my take on it is, if you're learning something in that environment, then you're more likely to make changes. For example, divers, if you're going to go diving and see the coral reefs and learn a skill that's associated with it, it then turns into like a lifestyle practice whereby you understand the resource. And so you're not going to, you know, go back home and buy things or do things that will damage that resource that you so love. And that's the way I feel with the surfing and what we're doing, right? The idea is that people fall in love with surfing, which is the activity. And what my goal is that they fall in love with the resource, which is the ocean that's providing that activity. And through that sense of love, hopefully they will start to think about how their behaviors, how their attitudes are impacting negatively or positively that resource that gave them so much pleasure.
Sure. You know, I think that's a good place to punctuate the you know, ethical leaders inherently have to have noble incentives, and you surely have that. And to me, that will be the power to drive the economy to a place where it is driving the public good that we're looking for. Thanks, Travis. Thanks for leading this discussion. All the panelists, thank you for being involved with this. It is critical. I think it's right where it belongs, right in the center of how we are looking at our economy, how we're looking at the global economy. This idea of conscious capitalism, as seeing capitalism as having a very noble and high aim. And a quick comment, this is meant to be not just a dialogue for us and for people who are off screen, but hopefully inspiration for us. We did get a couple of pieces of action that we can all take, and here is another one, and that is that this session has been recorded, and it will be published probably in about a week or so. And it could be the opportunity for professors to take it to their classrooms, for businesses to take it to their employees or maybe even their stakeholders, whether it be just Travis's introduction or whether it's the whole session. But this can be inspiration for all of us to carry this message beyond this session. Travis, thanks so much. Thanks for your good work. Thanks for being part of the forum. Thank you, panelists. And Bill, thanks for keeping us on track.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Travis. You have inspired me, and it was really inspirational to hear that story again. And I know you mentioned a lot of great resources, which I started the panel with, but in the chat there, I'll leave it up for a minute before we all end. So for attendees and panelists, I tried to write down everything that you were saying, Travis. So, but you also are all connected there too. So feel free to connect amongst yourselves if you still have questions, if you want to add resources to that. But you mentioned a lot of great resources and studies and things like that. So I tried to do my best to get that down there. And I do hope that this sparks a further conversation with the recording and things like that. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Very welcome. And I'll leave you with this last message. Go out and vote with your dollar every single day. And go out and vote too, coming up in the elections.
Great.
And thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure. To all of you, you guys are all welcome to come down here anytime you want, or reach out if you have any questions or concerns. Bill, feel free to shoot everybody my personal contact info. Big hugs from Costa Rica.
Yeah.